Hello everyone, welcome. Today we are going to make Mandalorian cookies. So first things first, you're going to want to make your cookie. So today I'm going to make a really simple shortbread biscuit, basically because it's 3 ingredients and I had them all in the house and it's kind of tasty. So to do that, you're going to want 125 grams or 4 ounces of butter, 50 grams or 2 ounces of caster sugar, 180 grams or 6 ounces of plain flour. Now with your butter you do want it to be room temperature, so it's like nice and squidgely. So if it's not like that, throw it in the microwave and bung it on for like 30 odd seconds, and if it's a little bit melted, that's okay, it's all good, because we're going to add the sugar in and then we're going to mix the sugar together until it's kind of smooth into a sort of little like paste like thing. I probably did it for about 2 minutes, but basically just do it for as long as you feel like. So after you've done that, you're going to want to put in your flour, and then you're going to mix it all together until it sort of comes together. Because, yeah, that's kind of obvious. You can sieve your flour if you want. I obviously could not be bothered. It's going to come together and be a little bit sort of crumbly. So eventually you are going to want to sort of get your hands in there. And no one wants to see all the mixing together, so we'll just skip forward. So here we are. I'm on my little kitchen table because that's where all the natural light's good. So I put down a bit of baking paper. And so I'm just going to pull together the dough because it's a bit crumbly, but it definitely holds together because it's basically just melted pure butter that's holding it all there. So get it all out, don't like to waste. Scraping. Now knead it all together, just a little bit. I mean, it's not like kneading bread or anything. You're just sort of pulling the cookie dough together. See, yeah, it's kind of lumpy. So I'm just going to flatten it out a little bit. And then I'm going to grab another piece of baking paper, skipping forward, and I'm going to roll it out between the 2 layers. So you want to roll it out to be about a centimetre or more thick. I think that's about a 1/8 of an inch. But that's the thinnest you want it, because I'm just going to let you know a little secret right now. I may have rolled mine out a little bit too thin, and in a little while we're going to discover what happens when you roll it out too thin. So anyway, roll it out, throw it on a baking tray, and put it into the fridge for about 10 to 15 minutes. You basically just want to harden up the dough so that it's easier to cut. So while your dough is resting in the fridge, you're going to want to turn your oven on and get it to heat. We're looking at 190 Celsius or 375 Fahrenheit. So what else you're going to want to do now while your dough is in the fridge is trace out and get ready your template that you're going to use. Now I did this beforehand and just quickly basically threw on my cell phone and did it. So as you can see, I grabbed some baking paper and I lay it across the top of an iPad because that seemed like the easiest option for me at the time. So basically throw your baking paper on, trace around it, then when you've got your template traced, you want to trace around the edge of that template to make the shape of what the cookie is going to be. Now, pro tip, which we'll discover I didn't do, take the baking paper trace and then do it onto card, because it's going to be a little bit difficult and finicky to do the decoration, the Mandalorian symbol part, if you don't. And we will discover that in the future with the fun times ahead. Also, another thing to do is to make another template that is just the outline of the shape that your cookie is going to be, because it's sort of like the pencil outlines can disappear because of all the fats from the butter. Then what you're going to want to do is the fun, finicky, annoying part, and that is cut it out with scissors. Woohoo! So after about 15 minutes in the fridge, you're going to get that out and take off that upper layer of baking paper. Then you're going to grab your template, the one that is your cookie template, not the one necessarily that's got all the little cutout bits. And you're basically just going to go around and cut your cookies out with a sharp knife into the shape. Skipping ahead because that takes forever and is kind of boring. Oh, and then, sorry, should also let you know, you're going to want to put your cut out cookies onto a well-greased oven tray. If you're like me, you probably don't want to waste any of it, so then take all those little bits of leftover dough, smush them together, and re-roll them all out and cut more cookies, because it's really easy to do. You can do it. I believe in you. Then you're going to want to throw those cookies into the oven for roughly 10 minutes. Now, here's what you don't want to do. What you don't want to do is get distracted and do other things and not set a timer. And then discover that your cookies are, well, let's just say we're going for the word caramelized. Yeah, that's it. Caramelized, okay? That is the word we're using today. And leave them until they are completely and utterly cold. Now, the next part is the icing part, and if you want, you can do that the next day. And now for the fun part. Okay, at least this is the part that I think is fun. So that was my circus voice. I don't think it really worked out very well. Anyway, moving on. Icing! Okay, if you're like me, this is the only reason you eat baking. What we're going to do is you're going to take the cooling rack and you're going to put it on top of a tray. Then you're going to ice it with white chocolate. Now, why white chocolate, you might be asking? Well, that's simple. Because chocolate makes everything amazing. I really am quite shocked that you need to ask. Anyway, I am using white chocolate that is a Nestle Milky Bar. If you can't get Nestle Milky Bar, use whatever else you want. Basically just white chocolate. I use a block and a couple of lines. And what I did was I broke it all up, put it into a microwave safe bowl, and put it into the microwave to melt it. Now what you want to do is you want to do it in short 30-second bursts, never more than 30 seconds, because if you do it for too long you can burn the chocolate and then it's gross. So 30 seconds, give it a spoon around. If it still needs more time, put it in for another 30 seconds. Again, stir or spoon around. Don't know where that came from. And then you're going to put spoonfuls onto your cookies and just slowly push it around to the edges. I'm not putting heaps on at once, again, because I don't want to waste the chocolate. So anyway, doing that, spinning it around, pushing around. I'm going to do it on all of them. And this is going to take a little while, so skipping forward. That was my skipping forward music. I hope you liked it. You're welcome. So take your chocolate covered cookies and put them into a cold spot until they are hardened. Now, my tray couldn't fit in my fridge because the fridge is preferable. So I put it into my oven because I was doing this the next day and it was completely cold. And that seemed like a cold area to put it out of the way. Then when they were touch dry, I put them onto a plate and put them into the fridge to harden them properly because they're much easier to do the next step, which is the major decorating, when they are quite hard. And now for the even better, more fun but finicky and annoying part, but you know, the bit that makes the entire thing, the Mandalorian cookie. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to do it. And then you're going to realize that I liked one way more than the other because that's what I did all the cookies in. So anyway, first way is using food dye. What you're going to need for this is you're going to need black food colouring, and if you want this not to turn into a complete and utter mess, you're going to want a black edible pen. Now I came across one of these in a shop, which is why I was like, oh, this looks like a shit ton of fun. I must have that. But what I discovered is that these pens, which are actually designed for fondant, are not overly happy being used on chocolate. So I was able to do the outline in those pens, but by the time it came to filling in the design, they had sort of, well, yeah, let's just say that they were not happy. So I used black food colouring and a paintbrush to fill in the design. Now what I may have also just left out is that you take your template, you put it over your cookie, and you trace. It is really that simple. You trace it. But it's simple and it's difficult because it's actually quite a really little finicky design. And I may have been ever so slightly over ambitious in making this the first thing I've ever recorded. And also the fact that I didn't test it out at all before I thought, shit, yeah, totally, I can totally do this. I'll give it a go. Okay, here we go. Now, second option for putting your Mandalorian design onto your cookie is taking dark chocolate, melting it, again, in little bursts so it doesn't burn, and then adding some black food colouring into it. What you'll discover is that it's still brown, but the black food colouring does darken it just a tad. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your stencil, lay it over the top of the cookie, and just paint it on. And you're going to do that over and over and over for every single cookie. And it does take a little bit longer than you think it's going to. And, well, one of the iffy bits with this is that the dark chocolate will start to harden over time. So what you're going to want to do is potentially, depending on what your climate is that you're in, throw the chocolate back in the microwave again, maybe for 10-15 seconds, and just give it a little stir just to warm it up again. Another problem you're going to get, which I'm going to show you now, is that you may remove your template and it might take off some of the chocolate with it. But that's actually not too big of a problem, because what you're going to do is you can take your little paintbrush that you've been using and you're just going to gently put it on again, because it will have actually left a little line in the white chocolate that you can follow that will show you where the dark chocolate was. So you're now going to do that for all your cookies. Have fun. Then put them all to the side, let them cool. I suggest again putting them in the fridge because it just makes everything go a little bit faster. And ta-da! There you have it! Mandalorian cookies! I'm actually quite proud of myself for this, I'll be honest. I was quite worried thinking it was going to be a complete and utter fail, but I do have to say I'm going to go for a win this time. May not always be that way, but this time, definitely going for a win. So if you have watched this video all the way to this point, thank you very much. Well done. Pat on the back for you. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed, like this video and all that jazz. Hopefully maybe I'll do another one in the future of some sort. I do have several ideas, and if there's anything you think you'd like me to give a go of doing, please let me know. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. Oh, before I go, one last thing that is very important I completely forgot. Now is the time to eat, and just FYI, totally delicious. So I do suggest that you store them up high, away from the marauding hordes.